Yo, what's up, Broncos country? This is Eddie with Colorado Sports Connection, and tonight we are joined by another great Broncos fan in Broncos country, Ben from Sports Talk Denver. And Ben, we want to appreciate you coming on to the show tonight, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, boys. This is going to be a blast. I almost needed you to turn me up in my headphones with that intro. Let me just go in for a couple bars. I'm so hyped.
Well, great to have you, man. We're, like I said, really excited. Just want to kind of get your thoughts on some of the stuff the Broncos have done. But the first thing I want to lead off with is I wanted to see how you became a Broncos fan.
Yeah, so born, raised in Denver, Colorado. We moved to Arizona for a couple of years, and that was when I was like in 4th or 5th grade before I really liked football. And I remember one of my first memories was we had a bunch of company over. My dad kept like going up to the spare bedroom, and every time he came down, he looked so upset. And I went up with him the last time, and it was the last couple seconds of the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Denver Broncos. Huge underdog story, and it's that underdog story that like fueled the Broncos to win back-to-back Super Bowl champions after that. And then we moved from Arizona to Colorado, and from the absolute jump, I remember first game just mollywopping the Chiefs. I think it was like 19-0 or something like that. And I never turned back. I kept the front page of the Denver Post for both Super Bowl years, and they're in a binder in my parents' basement, and kind of hooked from there, and lucky to be raised at that time of in Broncos history, and Terrell Davis and Ed McCaffrey and Rod Smith and Alfred Williams, like that squad, just one of my favorite Broncos teams of all time for sure, man. So how about you guys? Like what got you all hooked?
You can go ahead and go, Mohamed.
Yeah, like I was telling Ben earlier, basically I wasn't born in the States, and I've moved in like 96, 97, and didn't know anything about American football. I used to see it on TV, didn't know what was going on. I felt like people were fighting. To me, it was like a stupid game. I'm like, what is that? And then 2005, everybody was talking about football, and I started watching. I was like, man, this is really like chess. It's not what I thought it was, right? And then at that time, I was thinking to move to Denver, and the Denver Broncos were doing pretty good around that time. Jake Plummer, I'm actually rocking his jersey. And from there, I was like, man, this is really good. I forgot about soccer. Like, this is my main sport right now. Like, love the Denver Broncos, love football, love all the, ins and outs about football. So yeah, that's my little story. What about you, Eddie?
Well, mine starts whenever I was 10 years old. I remember when I was a kid, my dad would play, he would play in football pools, and he would always, be like, "Hey, Eddie, who do you want to pick?" Every week. He would do two of them. He'd do one for himself, one for me, and he'd be like, "Who do you want?" And honestly, I didn't know nothing about football. I didn't know nothing about teams, who had the better team, who had the better roster, or even what a roster was, to be honest with you. And I just picked based off the names I liked, and their logos that I liked. And whenever Super Bowl 32 came around, I was just like, wow, I really like the Broncos colors, blue, the orange. I thought they were freaking awesome colors. It looked like the sunset to me, which I know that's kind of a cliche because a lot of people think that, but I just like the horse. I like the Bronco on the helmets. I like the, alternative one they had with the D on there and the colors. And we were watching the Super Bowl, me and my dad had like $1,000 on the Packers because they were heavy favorites in that game to win that year. Because they were, they won the previous year, and then they were gonna, win the. Everybody was expecting them to win Super Bowl 32, and I'm just like, my dad's like, "Yo, Eddie, who are you gonna pick?" He's like, "Man, you should pick the Packers. They're really good." And I'm like, "Nah, I like the Broncos. I like their colors. I like the horse. I like, everything about them." And whenever they won Super Bowl 32, my dad was just like in the chair like this the entire time because he just lost $1,000. And here's 10-year-old me just sitting there. laughing at him.
Wow.
And then whenever they went back the next year, it was like I really
Mhm.
started getting into football that next year. You know, I didn't watch every Broncos game because I lived in St. Louis, so we didn't get them all. And I watched the next year's Super Bowl and they destroyed the Falcons. I'm like, all right, I'm hooked. And then
Totally, man.
I was big on the Elway, I was big on the Atwater, and then right after that, Elway retired. And I'm just like, great, you
Yeah.
know.
But
But
man, that Super Bowl 32 is like, yeah, one of my most like prominent memories, and seeing my dad cry because he'd watched the Broncos lose all
yep,
those Super Bowls, and the Dave Logan call. I had like a pen that I kept in the original case that had the Dave Logan call in it, and he was like, "You can stand up and salute in Denver because the Mile High or the Super Bowl champions live in your town," and it's like still gives you chills when you hear this.
yep.
Yeah.
What was that 30 years
Well,
ago? So
Well, that was the main reason why I even moved. Well, I shouldn't say the main reason, but it's one of the big reasons I moved here. Like, I love the mountains. I wanted all the seasons after living in the South for 10 years. And now, and the Broncos, like every chance I get, I stop by the stadium. Like,
oh,
I'll be on my way home from work, tired, beat down, and I'll be like, I'm going to stop by the stadium and just walk around. Like, it's just like a dream come true for me as a Broncos fan from a little kid until now. But that's how I became a Broncos fan.
yeah, love it,
Um,
man.
it's awesome. I love it. And like I said, living in St. Louis all those years in the 2000s, being a Broncos fan, my dad was a Raiders fan too. So he was kind of voting.
Oh my God.
All my family are Chief fans. My dad's a Raiders fan. I'm a Broncos fan. So you do the math for Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Sounds brutal, man.
But with that said, Ben, I wanted to get your take. What is your best memory in Broncos history, and what is your worst memory in Broncos history?
Oof. My best memory. It's cool watching. I've got a bunch of family who are Bears fans and Lions fans, and so it's cool that like in my lifetime they've won 3 Super Bowls that I remember like crystal clear, and watching all of them with my dad. There's just something emotional about that. And of the 3, since I, really the first one was my first year watching football, so I just thought that's what happened. Like, hey, you win Super Bowls, and then the Manning one I think was the one that meant the most to me, just because I knew how hard it was to win a Super Bowl. And it felt like the door was wide open for Peyton Manning when he first got there, and that, the comeback against the Chargers, and then to get all the way there and the snap over his head against Seattle. And so then when we finally won, when it felt like the door was shut, when Manning got benched for Osweiler, when Kubiak did that, and how brilliant it was to work him back in, I really thought it was over for Manning and that we'd missed that Super Bowl window. So there was something so sweet about that, and watching Von Miller just become Cam Newton's daddy. I don't think I'll ever forget that.
Yes.
I think Tim Tebow, the walk off to Demaryius Thomas. I was like living in Chicago, going to college and watching it. And remember, like, it was the middle of winter, and I was like, that walk off, I took my shirt off and just sprinted down the road screaming. And it was like one of the sweetest moments for sure. So that would definitely be my high. I think the low would be the Joe Flacco Hail Mary over Raheem Morris, right? That was his name. And
Yep.
that was awful. And then it's been a rough stretch here. Just like having, I have a 7-year-old son, and the first time he ever saw us beat the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes was this year. And I want him to love football, and he just sees Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, and like Broncos haven't sniffed the playoffs. So it's been a tough stretch, but it feels like we're kind of we're coming through that, and I have super high hopes, especially with how down on this squad the media is. What are your guys' high and low points of your Broncos fandom? I'm curious.
Go ahead, Mohamed.
For me, definitely Tebow to DT. Yeah, and especially the fact that Demaryius Thomas didn't even know that we won the game. He was just running, and the way John Elway was screaming is amazing for me. Yeah, I'll never forget that moment. The worst would be that Super Bowl against the Seahawks. Just the whole game was. I mean, like, I hate the Seahawks since that time. Seriously, like, I just cannot stand them. It was terrible. That was a terrible memory for me. What about you, Eddie?
Well, my favorite memory is, like I talked about, that first Super Bowl just with my dad, just, that feeling of emotion and rush you get. Like, granted, I wasn't like a die-hard Broncos fan at that time, but just getting into football and then just watching the Broncos win and just seeing that. But now looking back on it as, a 36-year-old man, that's the point I got in the football. That was my favorite memory, just going back, watching that Super Bowl. What got me into football, and it was the Broncos and John Elway. That's my favorite memory in Broncos history. My worst, honestly, Mohamed, I'm right there with you. Super Bowl 48 against the Seahawks. Like, we had the best offense in the league that year, the best quarterback. No one still has broke that record of 55 touchdowns in a year. And we go into the Super Bowl and we just get freaking just mollywopped in that game. Like, what was it? Like 43-8 or 45-8 or something? It was bad.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being I was living in I was living in Savannah, Georgia at that time. And I remember just watching the game, and at the end of it, I'm just like, you got
you
to
want
be
to
kidding
take
me.
a sick day the next day. I was.
I did take a sick day. That's funny you mentioned that, because I did. I was like, I'm not going into work tomorrow. I don't feel good.
Yeah,
So,
I was teaching high school in Illinois, and I wore, Orange Friday, wearing it, and always playing Broncos pump up stuff, and they were all insufferable Bears fans. And I remember having to go, because it was my first year teaching, and having to actually go to class, and the amount of crap that was talked to me and how low I was, I wanted to like quit my job. It was awful. And I just remember laying in bed that night, and all of my wife's family is texting her like, "Hey, it's been okay." Like, hey, wellness check, thoughts and prayers. That was rough for sure. And yeah, to have like that be my picture of Russell Wilson, and then think we're getting him here, and then have
yep.
him not be that, it's like, man, it's easy to see why there's such disdain for him in Denver, because he killed our dreams like twice,
2 times, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that made it even worse. It's like he destroyed us in the Super Bowl, and he comes here and destroys our. I wouldn't. He kind of destroyed the franchise, taking that cap hit we got to take this year. But,
yeah, but we took the brunt of it, and we're through it and better for it. We got quarterbacks who can run Peyton's system, and I think it's blue skies in Denver always, dude.
And I also wanted to bring up that Super Bowl that we won against the Panthers, Super Bowl 50. I was living in South Carolina when we won that Super Bowl. Let's just say there was a lot of ticked off Panther fans with me walking around with my Broncos jersey on the next day.
Wow.
I know they
So
hated you.
that was a good time. That was fun. But the next topic we're going to touch on is the new defensive guy we signed from the Birmingham Stallions, the championship UFL champions. He signed a 3-year deal worth $2.84 million. I wanted to get your take on this, Ben, then Mohamed will go over to you, and I'll give my take.
Yeah, I mean, huge get for the Denver Broncos. I don't watch a ton of UFL football. I just catch the highlights, and he was a dude who I've seen highlights of before. And so that's a great sign, and hearing what, NFL coaches think about him. And then I think the thing that's exciting is that he had several teams. The latest report I said is that up to 10 NFL franchises were reaching out to his agent to try to sign him. His agent's the same guy who represents Lucas Kroll, so there's cool connections there. And that the first visit he wanted was the Denver Broncos, and I think that's just a fantastic sign. And the Denver Broncos defensive line has like sneakily gotten so much better. We already were like light years ahead of where we were once we got rid of Frank Clark and Gregory. Like, they were kind of culture killers to this team. And so that was already better. And then we somehow ended up with Franklin Myers on this squad, who's a starter for the Jets. Go out and get Malcolm Roach, who is one of the best run stopping defensive linemen in the entire game. And then to bring him in, and I think our defensive line, while we don't have a Myles Garrett and a name like that, we've got so much depth on that D line. It's ridiculous. So I say, welcome to Denver, Tillman. And we can't wait to see what he does. What are your all thoughts, Mohamed? What are you thinking?
I mean, great. He's, I'm really excited. He's great against the run. All the highlights that I see, that line was actually good, I thought, compared to last year. Now it's even better. But like I was talking to Eddie about it. My concern is the inside. Like, that room is getting really crowded, and it's good, but what do we have on the inside? It's pretty thin, we can manage to get an inside linebacker, that'd be fantastic. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, me personally, I like the signing only because I did watch the UFL. Like I just love football that much. Like the UFL being a spring league, like I just can't get enough football. So, I watch it during the, season. And my favorite team, of course, since I'm from St. Louis, is the Battlehawks. And I watched that guy just make a mess of our offensive line this year. Like, I mean, he didn't really get to the core. I mean, he didn't really tackle the quarterback much, but man, he was causing problems up front for our offensive line. I was like, this guy is really good. He was one of the ones I watched. I was like, holy crap. You know, just watching them terrorize my Battlehawks in that game they played this year, I think it was like week 7. I was just like, Jesus Christ, man, somebody's going to sign this kid. I'm happy that the Broncos signed him. Like, he is a menace up front. And if he can figure out on the NFL level, like I wouldn't be hesitant to say that he's going to take either Zach Allen, DJ Jones, or even John Franklin Myers' job. He's outside or inside. I can't remember. I think he's
outside.
He played 3 technique and 4 from what I saw. And the UFL part of it, like there are a lot of people who have hit, and obviously it's going to be a stretch to compare him here, but like Reggie White did also start in the UFL. We know Kurt Warner's story, obviously you being from St. Louis there, like there, Herschel Walker, there are a lot of dudes who take a little longer to develop or didn't have the grades to get into a D1 school. And so go that route. And so you hear what Wade Phillips says about him and you trust Bum, right? And the fact that the Denver Broncos didn't just say like, hey, we'll sign you to a 1-year deal. They gave him a 3-year deal, which shows they actually believe in it and are putting their money where their mouth is. And maybe that's part of why he wanted to come here, is that he was offered, he knew he'd get a 3-year runway there. But that just shows he's not showing up on any practice squad. He's here for the long haul.
And looking at his numbers from last year, he got 32 tackles last year, and he got 4 sacks, which was 10th in the UFL. Like, this kid's going to be a menace, and I'm excited. Like, especially being in our division now, with the Chargers probably going to run the crap out of the ball this year with, Harbaugh there, and just getting after quarterbacks with Patrick Mahomes. Like, I love it. Like, the more pass rush help we can get, the freaking better, man. And more help we can get stopping the run, the better. So I'm excited about it. And like you said, Ben, a 3-year deal, like they really wanted him here. It wasn't like a 1-year, okay, we're going to see what you can do. And then if it doesn't work, we'll get rid of you. He's here for, I don't know the whole extent of the contract. I don't know if like he's here for 2 years guaranteed and the 3rd year is optional or whatever. I'm not sure on that, but if it's a fully guaranteed deal where he's going to be here all 3 years, I can't wait to watch and see him play here in Denver. But the next topic we got, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Ben. Like, we got training camp coming up here in like a month. What are the battles in training camp that you're looking forward to this year?
Ooh, there are a ton, man. Like I think, and I've said it before on the channel that like I think for the first time in a long, long time, we're gonna have people cut from this team that you'll see starting on other squads, and that just feels fantastic. When people are trying to pluck people off of our roster, and so I see incredible depth at our wide receiver room, at our running back room, and the cornerback. The whole battle with the cornerback is going to be absolutely nuts. So I think running back wise, like I think I'm really high on Jaleel, and Sean Payton has just gushed about how hard he works. He's put on pounds in the off season. That one of his big issues last year was he had crazy production early in the season, and then teams figured out, when Jaleel's in, they're running to him every time because he doesn't understand the pass block, and he was so undersized that he'd just get, he couldn't help Russell Wilson out in the pass block. And so everyone's saying he put on 8 pounds of muscle and has kept his speed. And so that's intriguing. Javonte Williams is coming back after an injury that really could have been a career ender a couple of years ago. And now with modern technology and all that kind of stuff, they're saying like high hopes for him being back to old Javonte. And if you go back and watch his film from his first year, like I have not seen a running back who has the ability to go side to side and put his foot in the ground and switch directions like that. And I just watched the highlights against the Cowboys when he like carried half that squad down the field on his back. And so he's back and he's on a contract year. And so that's crazy. Obviously, Audric Estime. I've got like 25 pictures of him with his shirt off just saved in my camera roll now. How many do you guys have? Like that dude is yoked.
I got a few.
Yes.
Okay, we all do, right? We'd be lying if we said we didn't. So he's huge, and then Samaje was like legit, and was Russell Wilson's like safety valve and one of the best pass catchers out of the backfield, and then to go get Blake Watson, give him money out of Memphis, and he was the highest undrafted player, and a lot of teams wanted him. And Sean Payton actually was the only head coach who called him multiple times to be like, "Hey, come to Denver." And so you're talking 5 there, and you're no way you carry 5 because Sean Payton wants to carry Burton as that fullback. And so you could see a world where he only carries 3. And so, I mean, is it Samaje and Blake who get cut? There's no way either of those dudes make it through to the practice squad. And so you're going to have a Denver Broncos running back on another team. What are you, before I talk about wide receiver or cornerback, what are your guys' thoughts on, do you agree that the running back room is going to be pretty interesting?
Go ahead,
Well,
Mohamed.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man. And like you said, Estime, I cannot wait to see him play. I mean, the guy is so jacked up, like you were saying. Like the way he runs, people are going to be scared to tackle him. You know, it's just going to happen. And then if Williams is actually healthy, oh God, you know, Bo Nix will be fine. You know, especially in his first year, just run the ball. You know, hand it off. Absolutely. Looking forward to watching Estime. That's for sure. Go ahead, Eddie.
Well, I'm kind of on the boat that I think they're going to carry 3 running backs. Like if they weren't going to carry a fullback, I'd be like, yeah, they probably carry 4, possibly. But the fact that I've said this before, I think they're going to carry 6 wide receivers, and I think that we're gonna, like you said, we'll get into this in a minute with the pass rushing and all the other positions, but I just feel like they're going to carry 3 running backs. And if I had to pick today, June 23rd, who those 3 running backs would be, I would honestly say I think they're going to want 2 bruisers, like 2 of the guys that are bowling balls that can just during like November and December just run people over. I think Audrey Estime and Javante, of course, are going to make the roster. And then that leaves the 3rd spot, which honestly they're going to want a pass catching back, and that could be Jaleel or Pirine. And I'm pretty sure they can save, I think, $5 million if they cut Pirine, which I'm not saying he's not good. Like they might keep him and cut Jaleel, but I just have a feeling with Jaleel being younger, cheaper, if Peyton can save money this year, I think they keep him. If he outperforms P. Ryan in training camp, those are my 3. I think that they're going to hang on to.
Sean has talked up Jaleel so much. Like he in that press conference a couple weeks ago, he was just saying that Jaleel's the first one in the door every single day, and he's done with his workout by the time most of the team shows up to breakfast. And it was like a 2-minute and 30-second clip just about Jaleel, and he never mentioned P. Ryan. And I think Sean Payton is the most calculated person in the league with his words, and you don't gush about that guy and what he means to the locker room to cut him. So, but I'm with you, man. I don't see the thing that could change it is the kickoff rule change and like what type of player is running back kicks. Cause I don't think it's going to be Mims just cause I think Sean wants to get him really involved early. And and I think that the change, having a running back there makes a lot of sense because it looks a lot more like a line of scrimmage than before. And so it's about one cut, finding the hole, and it's going to be crazy exciting. And I'm high on our ability to do that for sure. So yeah, you mentioned receiving room. I think that, PFF just ranked us the 2nd worst receiving room in football, which is comical. Like it made me like part of me wants to like shut down the channel until after the season starts. Cause I'm so sick of people doubting us. And that was the highest paid receiving room in football 2 years ago. And people just have like in the PFF ranking, they completely forgot about Tim Patrick, and he looks springy. He said, I'm back to my old self. I'm as fast as I was before. I'm leaner. And so like that is insane. Cortland coming back and not holding out from voluntary OTAs like a bunch of his counterparts in other divisions, like the Cincinnati receivers who held out. Jefferson was going to hold out if he didn't get his deal. So that showed Cortland wants to be here. So you got 2 right there. Crazy high on Mims. Everyone was saying that Jerry Jeudy was even Sean Payton said Jerry Jeudy is who limited Marvin Mims's development because he was running the same routes, and you can't take a 9th overall draft pick and take him off the field for Marvin Mims. And then Franklin, I'm crazy high on. Everyone's saying that other Utah cat we went out and got, Vele, is a beast. We still got little Jordan Humphrey. Virgil's coming back after his injury and looks super good as well. So that room is good. And and Troy Franklin, like Bo Nix's favorite target at Oregon. So I just don't. I think that's another crazy good room. Mohamed, who do you think would be on the bubble there, or what do you think about our receiving room?
Definitely high on Tim Patrick. Hopefully, he stays healthy this year. I'm hearing some good things. I'm not surprised. His main thing was just staying healthy, and I think it's looking good this year. Hopefully, he stays healthy. Definitely looking forward for that connection. Troy Franklin, Bo Nix. They have this familiarity from college and stuff. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. Really hard to tell, like who they're gonna cut and who's they're gonna keep. Same thing. It's just like the running backs, and like you said, whoever they cut might start somewhere else.
Yeah.
I guess it's a good problem to have, for sure. Go ahead, Eddie.
Yeah, the receivers, that's a big one for me too. Like, you got so many talented receivers, and I agree with you, Ben. Like that whole freaking thing with PFF ranking them like the 30th overall. I could look right now and probably find like at least I'd say 5 to 10 teams that have a worse receiver room than we do. But yeah, like if I had to pick, like I said today, if the season started today and I had to pick, I think, like I said, I think they're going to carry 6 wide receivers. Maybe 7, just depending on special teams and how this kickoff rule gets played out. But the 6 I would pick would be Sutton, Reynolds, Patrick, Mims, Franklin, and honestly, I hate to say it, but I would like out of Brandon Johnson, Vele, Virgil, and Lil Jordan Humphrey. I would say Humphrey only because he's familiar. He's familiar with Sean Payton, and he was actually a reliable receiver last year. The guy I think caught like 2 or 3 touchdowns. Granted, he didn't play that many snaps, but whenever he was out there playing, he made the most of it. So that's what I think. Like, and I also wanted to talk about my favorite one, my personal favorite battle this year, outside of the quarterback one, because I think we all can agree that Bo Nix is going to start the year. Is the pass rushing room. Like I said, not mentioning Tillman, but I'm talking about outside linebackers like, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Benito, Baron Browning, Jonah Ellis, and then you got a couple other guys. I think Nkum's still here, and so is Perkins. But that's the room. That's the competition I'm waiting to see because I want to see these guys. Like we need these guys to take that next step and be able to get after a quarterback. Like I like the pass rush room, but it has not ever since Von Miller and Bradley Chubb left. This pass rush room has been mid to say the best. Like that's all they've been, and we need someone that can get after the quarterback or take those double teams to get someone else in a single single, so that way they can get to the quarterback. What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
Yeah, I think while we don't have a Vaughn or a Myles Garrett or anything like that, we've got a platoon of depth there, and they've already talked about having a NASCAR package where you could get all 4 of those dudes in on passing downs and really pressure the quarterback. And I think what kind of buys us a little bit of time, probably till November, is having Drew Sanders on IR for his blown Achilles. But I'm with you, man, that Cooper and Baron Browning are both on contract years, and I have really big expectations for both of those dudes. And obviously Benito, Vance Joseph just gushed about him in his latest press conference about his skill as a pass rusher. His issue was always like the run defense, that he had a speed move that was legit, but that was all he had. I think part of why we haven't had a 10 sack dude since Bradley Chubb, which feels like ages ago, is just when teams are up on you, they're not like in obvious passing downs as much, and we struggled so much against the run that they're in 3rd and 3 and 3rd and manageable all the time. And then you don't know what's going to happen. And I do just think that's where this league has been sleeping on us, is that we've improved every single spot in defense. And even Like I loved Justin Simmons. Like he's the next jersey I'll buy is a Justin Simmons jersey. But the fact that he's still a free agent just shows that we probably way overvalued him in Denver, you know. So I'm with you, man. I think that pass rush position is deep, and that's going to be crazy to see who are the starting guys. My guess would be it's Browning and Cooper. But yeah, you're right. We got a huge list of dudes who can get after the quarterback. I'm curious what's going to happen with cornerback 2, 3. I mean, you were saying, I don't remember if it was before we hit record, but you're super high on McMillian. Dude's a dog, but then I think Riley Moss is great. That Abrams Drain, a lot of people at one point in time had him as a second round draft pick, and he ran a 4.40 out of Mizzou, and you know, played against some good quarterbacks there, and he looked good. I'm really high on Riley Moss coming back after an injury out of Iowa. So I think our corners are now deep, and we got the best in the league, locking down, you know, at least half of a side. And sounds like Jim Leonard is going to play a lot more press coverage. So what are you guys' thoughts on our cornerback depth?
So like going back to the pass rush, I think definitely since Von Miller left, it hasn't been the same. But I think this year the overall line is going to be a lot better. I think we're going to be able to stop the run, and I see the pass rush improving. John Alice is, from what I'm hearing, he's pretty good, so he might start at some point. You know, they need to watch out. You know, I'm really high on him. So yeah, I have, you know, big hopes this season for the line. With the cornerbacks, it's really hard to tell. Like you said, you know, McMillan, I'm actually really high on him too. But I guess training camp would, like, you know, after training camp we'll kind of learn more about that and stuff. But that's what I think. What do you think, Eddie?
Well, McMillan, yeah, like I said, he's one of my favorites on the roster, but we know what position he plays. He plays that slot, that nickel position. That's where he's going to be. And the competition is going to most likely be for that, you know, second cornerback position, out opposite of PS2. Now, there's a lot of guys that are going to be competing for that job. You got Levi Wallace, you got Abrams Drain, you got Riley Moss, and I mean, you could even throw Damari Mathis in there, which honestly, I think he's the worst out of them. I mean, just from what we seen last year, like he was just getting burned early in the season, like bad. But then again, that whole defense was playing poorly. But like that's what I'm excited to see about the cornerback positions. That, you know, cornerback 2, opposite of Patrick Surtain, who's going to take it? Honestly, just watch it. I can't remember what he ran, but I know Abrams Drain coming out of college, man, he was fast.
Yeah,
and you know, I mean, the NFL is not really like it was a few years back when the Chiefs had Tyreek Hill and it was all about, you know, just burning people downfield. Like it's more of a, you know, death by 1,000 paper cuts, you know, just dunking your way down, you know, over middle routes, everything like that. But I hope Abrams Drain wins that. You know, I mean, yeah, Riley Moss too, but you know, even if, you know, whoever wins that second cornerback position, at least you know you got good depth. Like it's going to be a competition. 4.4. Like he was fast. So I would like to have him opposite of Patrick Surtain, Drain, personally. And then you got all that depth. You got Riley Moss, you know, Damari Mathis, I think could be a good piece if he doesn't have to be the day one starter. And then who was the other one? Levi Wallace. Like I don't think they brought Levi Wallace in to be the starter. I think they brought him in, you know, as the veteran to help these younger guys develop, and maybe he does start week 1. I don't know, but I'm kind of hoping it's Drain. I hope he beats out everybody in training camp and preseason. And that's what I think about that. Now, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Ben, before we move on to the next topic. Is that, what do you think? Hey, what's up, Clayton? Thanks for joining us tonight, man. What do you think about the inside linebacker position? Like, we ain't really got a whole lot of depth there. You got Barton, Singleton, and Griffith coming back, and then, you know, Sanders, even if he was healthy, we don't know if he's going to be outside or inside. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm very hopeful in Jonas Griffith. I think that is really losing out on Josie. Could be a massive loss if Griffith isn't the dude. And that was the very first thing that happened immediately after the Super Bowl. That was the very first move of the NFL offseason, was the Denver Broncos locking him in. And we know Sean Payton is playing 3D chess while everybody else is playing checkers, and that is not by accident that he locked that in. He is just crazy unique guy who didn't start even playing football until he was in high school, later in high school. And, big schools saw his film, just not by him throwing out huddle, but just like, hey, this dude is legit. It's really just been injuries that have plagued his development, and not injuries that are like Dulcich where they're related, just like fluky injuries. There's a long history in Broncos country of guys who have a couple of years injury and snap right back, and you don't even remember that. Like Julius Thomas a couple of years ago missed his first 2 seasons to injury, took the league by storm, and that's what we gotta hope for here in Denver. I think he actually was pegged to be the starter over Alex Singleton when Vance Joseph was the head coach at that point, and then he got hurt, and so they put Alex Singleton in, and he balled out of control. And so very, very hopeful in him in that way. And then I guess Cody Barton could be just in what I've seen in the comments, and then people like linking me stuff, like he racked up a ton of tackles, but it almost was like he was getting burned and catching guys from behind and could not stop the tight end. And so that scares me, but he does seem to be a tackling machine. But I think we need to be rooting hard for Jonas to stay healthy and seeing what he can do. What are your thoughts at that position, Mohamed?
If there was like one position that scares me, or I feel like it's a weakness for the Broncos, that would be it. Like we haven't had an inside linebacker like a number one in a long time. So and it's like it seems to me like every season or every draft I'm thinking that maybe this would be the year, and this it just hasn't happened. Hopefully, like I said, Griffith, kind of develops and plays really well, and but I do think we're thin, and like we were saying earlier, like keep getting all these outside linebackers, but we're not really thinking about the inside linebackers, So hopefully things pan out. What do you think, Eddie?
My thing is I don't know. I think they're gonna be playing a lot of safety at inside linebacker this year, a lot of sub linebacker, because like if you look at it now at the depth chart, they only got 3 inside linebackers. Like I said, Singleton, Burton, and Griffith. And we don't know if Griffith is going to be ready by the start of the season. Like from what I've heard in OTAs and mandatory minicamp, Burton wasn't looking that good. Or Barton, I'm sorry. He was not looking that good. And that kind of scares me. So to me, I think they'd be playing a lot more, safety at sub linebacker, because at safety too, you got PJ Locke, who they, locked in for another couple of years. You got Jones, who you brought in from Miami. And then you got Caden Stearns coming back from an injury too. So
JL Skinner, who people are like crazy high on him. So that's a really good take, man.
Yeah, so I think they might be putting they're going to be probably during the season playing a lot more, inside linebacker with a safety next to him, a lot more than they will have like 2 inside linebackers on the field at the same time. And that's just what I think about it. Like I don't see how you can go into the season with 3 inside linebackers and always just playing 2 on the field at the same time, the majority of the time. Because like if one of those guys gets hurt, now you're down to your last one and you ain't got nobody else. But they might even carry 5, maybe 6 safeties. That'd be crazy if they carried 6, but maybe they carry 5, this year, just to have that ability to put someone in there at the inside linebacker position. The next one I wanted to ask you about, Ben, was everybody's, they were talking about this a few weeks ago, the tight end position, with Dulcich still working on the side field, not really working out with the team. He's still trying to work through that injury, and Kroll coming out and Peyton making those comments about him a couple of weeks ago. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was the first video on my channel that blew up when I just threw a picture of him with his shirt off. It's kind of a good theme there. Just if they look good with their shirt off, get them on our squad. But the fact that he was invited to the Greg Olsen, Travis Kelce, Kittle tight end camp, and there are rumblings out of Broncos camp that irregardless of what happens with Dulcich, that Kroll will be the starter. And so that's exciting. That I remember so many times last year that I'm watching the tape, not even just the all 22 film, but like the real tape, and I'm like, dude, he's wide open. Russ, see him. He'd gotten signed and plays that Monday night game against the Bills, and Peyton's throwing him into tough situations immediately, having never taken a snap with Russell Wilson, and being wide open. Even just the interception on that 3rd and goal against the Texans, he was targeting Kroll, and so I think Peyton believes in him. He got invited by the best tight ends in the league to come to that tight end camp last week, and I don't be surprised if he shocks the world. And like Sean Payton said, you might not know number 85 now, but you will know by the end of the season who he is. And then Dulcich, like, I'm super high on him too. Like if you go back and watch that Jaguars game in London from 2 years ago, he drove us down the entire field. And coming out of UCLA, people were talking about him like they're talking about that Georgia tight, Brock Bowers. And so if he can get healthy, and he said last year at the end of season press conference that he's never struggled with injuries in his entire career, starting in middle school. And so you just gotta trust that he could be back. And then all of a sudden, we were the worst tight end room in the league last year, with Troutman and his butt catch, he can catch the ball, he can block. And I think that could go from a position everyone's sleeping on to being like, what? We have Travis Kelce on our team now with Kroll. Like, it could be pretty sweet.
Mohamed?
Yeah, I mean, with Dulcich coming back, and he's pretty good. Just same like Tim Patrick, keeps getting hurt and stuff. Hopefully this season he can stay healthy. Kroll, come on, like the way Sean Payton is talking about him, I believe him. I mean, and Bo Nix could definitely use the help, in his first year. So yeah, that's really exciting, man. I mean, hopefully we'll like finally have a true number one tight end. That would definitely help, and it's very important in Sean Payton's offense for sure. What do you think, Eddie?
Yeah, there was one play. I can't remember what game it was. It might have been that Bills game, Ben, but there was one play where they did throw the Kroll, and he like toe tapped on the sideline and caught the ball. I was just like, holy crap, that was amazing. Like, and I do want Dulcich to be healthy. I want him to be out there, but honestly, even if Dulcich were to get healthy by the start of training camp and he'd be out there practicing, I would think Kroll would still beat him out. I think Kroll beats him out for the starting job. Like, I have that much faith in that kid. Like, he is big, he's athletic, he can catch, like, and he's all, like you said, man, he's always open. Like, it's crazy to me, man. Like, I love it. I hope, and if Dulcich just come back to form like he was a couple years ago in that Jags game, if we can have two tight ends like that can catch, holy crap, man, more weapons the better. That Bo Nix is going to be thriving. He's not going to be able to get targets to all these guys. And, you can use them this year, and then if you have to move on because you got people to pay next year, you could probably, if you were like, hey, we're going to move on from Dulcich, or we're going to move on from this guy or that guy, and they play well this year and they get enough targets and they play well, you could probably get draft compensation out of them next year. So I'm not, and I don't care who it is really. Like, if I had to pick, I'd rather keep Kroll because I think the guy, he's bigger. I think he's more athletic. He might not be faster than Dulcich, but it doesn't matter. Like, tight ends are not really meant to be fast. They need to be the guy that will just go up and just, take the soul away from a defender. Like, just go up and just moss him. Just be like, you know what? Nope, this is mine. You ain't, no, get out of here, little boy. You ain't touching this football. That's what I think Kroll can be, and I hope to God he is. And with that said, the next topic on the list is the rumors coming out about Zach Wilson possibly being the starter and winning the competition. What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
0.1% chance. I love an underdog story and love, I think had we not drafted Bo Nix, then I would love to see that happen. And, a guy was picked number 2 overall. I think that's a really cool story. And he's got a huge fan base that travels with him everywhere. And I see that in the comments on my channel all the time that he's got fans from BYU who still follow him. And it sounds like he is a great guy. And the Jets just kill quarterback development. No doubt about that. But like I said a couple of minutes ago, that like Sean Payton is the most calculated person with his words in the entire NFL. Like, Drew Sanders tears his Achilles and we don't hear about it for an entire month after. Everything that he says is intentional and purposeful, and he doesn't let anything, like, he doesn't have an offhand comment that he just throws in there. And so what you saw, and I just rewatched the clip, was he had a 2-minute clip when they were asking him about the Zach Wilson trade, and it came down like right before the draft, and he made it very intentional to be like, well, this has been a month and a half in the making. And so I think that all started, and that ball started rolling before Sean Payton was in love with Bo Nix. And then I also think that there was definitely a world where Sean Payton was trying to make the rest of the league think that he liked JJ McCarthy and really wanted Bo Nix to fall to him. I believe that Bo Nix was the number 2 quarterback on his board, that it was Caleb Williams and then Bo Nix. And if Bo Nix was off the board, he was going to roll with Zach Wilson. And so I think it almost was Bo Nix insurance that if for whatever reason his misinformation campaign to try to fool the league into making Bo Nix drop to us, if that didn't work, he was going to roll with Zach. But I think this is, Bo's team to lead. What are you guys in on that? You think this is Bo's team?
Mohamed?
Yeah, like this whole thing with Zach Wilson, like I don't know where that came from. It just didn't make sense to me. Like all I've been hearing, like from everywhere, is that Zach Wilson is really struggling. And I was like high on him coming out of college because of his big arm and everything. But whatever damage that happened to him on the Jets, I guess cannot be reversed. He's not doing it. Like, so I don't know what they're saying. Hey, maybe the Broncos are spreading that rumor so they can trade him. Maybe somebody will come trade him. Yes, he's really good. Come and get him. Give us like a 4th or a 5th round pick. But yeah, like I don't know where that's coming from. It's definitely gonna be Bo Nix. I don't see that ever happening. The Broncos might even cut him at some point. What do you think, Eddie?
It's Bo Nix's team. It's ludicrous to think otherwise. This is Bo Nix's team. Like, I've been saying this since we draft, and Mohamed, Ben, I'll let you know now. I was on the Bo Nix train before the draft even started. Like, I've been on the Bo Nix train since the end of the season, like the end of the Super Bowl. Like, I watched his pro day. I watched the combine that he, was at. I watched everything. I was like, this is the guy Sean Payton wants. He's, calculating. He can throw over the middle of the field. His timing routes, his accuracy. Like, this is Sean Payton's guy. And I have no doubt in my mind, like, you got the reports coming out of OTAs and mandatory minicamp that say, Jarrett Stidham, he's leading the competition right now. Yeah, I get that because, like we've said before, Mohamed, he's been in the system for a year. Bo Nix has been in the system for what, maybe 2 months, just barely 2 months. He's been in the system. So, yeah, but the fact that Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham have been right here the entire time, just evenly matched, I'd say by the start of the season, heck, by preseason week 3, Bo Nix is already going to have that job locked down. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it locked down there in training camp before preseason even starts. Like, they're going to go in there. They're really going to start, opening the playbook. They're going to start learning. They're going to, start going through a lot more harder drills. And Bo Nix is just going to snatch it. He's going to be just like I said with Lucas Kroll with, going up and catching the ball. He's going to be like, nope, Stidham, sit your butt down. This is mine. Give it here. You ain't taking this. That's what's going to happen. This is Bo Nix's team. Now, on the flip side of that, with the Zach Wilson thing, like, yeah, Mohamed, I kind of agree with you on that this is probably Sean Payton, like Ben said, using his words carefully. He's getting that out there so someone will come along and be like, hey, we'll give you a 4th or a 5th for Zach Wilson, which would be more than what we got for him. I think we traded, what was it, a 6th for him?
Yeah.
So even if you can get a 5th out of him, that's great. That's an extra draft pick. Could
you see a world where going into the Seattle game, a lot of times, like you try to not let a team know what you're preparing for, where Sean Payton hasn't declared his starter going into the Seattle game, or do you think it will be locked down before then?
I think in Sean Payton's mind, like by the end of training camp, like I said, I think by the end of training camp, Bo Nix is going to secure the job. Sean Payton's going to know, but he's not going to say nothing. I even said this earlier. You can ask Mohamed. I said this like 3 weeks ago that Sean Payton, I wouldn't be surprised if he waits until like the Wednesday before the first game of the season for us to announce the actual starter. He'll know like a month and a half in advance. He'll be like, yeah, end of training camp, beginning of preseason. Bo Nix is the guy. He's the starter. He's going to tell everybody. He's going to keep it indoors. And then by that week of the first game of the season, keeping the Seahawks guessing, he's going to be like, yep, Bo Nix is the starter like Wednesday or Thursday of that week.
Oh, that'd be so brutal, but I agree, dude. But I want to know now.
Well, everybody's going to want to know now, but I mean, Sean Payton ain't even going to have to say it. Like, I guarantee you, whenever training camp comes around, preseason comes around, like, I'll be at training camp as many days as I can possibly go. I'm going to watch all the preseason games. We're just going to be sitting there like, yeah, Bo Nix is the starter. We don't even need Sean Payton to tell us. We could just see it with our own eyes. He is the starter. It's like, if he goes with anybody else, you're going to be like, Sean, what the heck are you doing? Are you crazy? And I was on the train. I was like, I was hoping when we traded for Zach Wilson and drafted Bo Nix, I was like, well, maybe Sean, wants to get an extra draft pick. He's going to, help Zach Wilson, and some team will come along during midseason and be like, hey, we'll give you a fourth for Zach Wilson because they're desperate for a quarterback, just like Dobbs, I think his name is, happened last year with the Vikings. But now with what we've seen, what we heard coming out of OTAs and mandatory minicamp, Zach Wilson's gone. He's not making the roster. Like, Jared Stidham's been in the system a year. If him and Bo Nix are tied, Bo Nix is going to be better than him by the start of the season. And I only think Sean's going to carry too, because I've talked about this a lot, Ben, is that with that rule where any NFL team can activate a quarterback on game day to the active roster and it won't take up a roster spot, there's no need to carry 3 quarterbacks. You can carry 2 and use that extra spot for something else. So I think it's going to
be Ben DiNucci back or something like that.
Probably on the practice squad. Or they could put Zach Wilson. Well, I don't know. Is he eligible for the practice squad?
I think he is, but I feel like if he's cut, he's going to get picked up somewhere, So that would be why you carry 3. What they're saying is that the biggest cap savings would be cutting Jared Stidham. I think you can save 10 if you cut him, but that would be, then if Bo gets hurt and the playoff chances,
you're relying on Zach.
Exactly.
And I don't think, like, if maybe he can win the backup job. Like, maybe in training camp, Zach Wilson starts showing more. Maybe he starts developing. Maybe he starts playing better in preseason and training camp. But unless that happens, I think it's going to be Nix number 1, Stidham number 2, Zach Wilson out the door unless he proves otherwise. So that's my opinion on that.
Zach Wilson, honestly, is just a better thrower than Russell. Like, he is Russell Wilson. Like, they're very similar. Like, they can buy time and roll out and use that big arm and a moon ball, but that's not Sean Payton's system. He wants a dude who can throw it on time to where it needs to be, and that's Stidham and Bo Nix all the way.
Yep, and that's why I think it's just going to be them 2, and Zach Wilson's out the door. Now, could they cut him? Maybe they try to, maybe shimmy a 5th-round pick out of a team before the start of the season. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they can find someone desperate enough to take him, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that one.
Yeah.
So, but the last subject of the night is, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Ben, is the Broncos hiring David Shaw. We know that a couple of years ago, whenever we hired Sean Payton, he was in the running. He was interviewed for the Broncos head coaching job. What are your thoughts?
Well, man, that was the best news of the offseason, like even better news than Bo Nix, just because it shows that like we are going to be good from now on. And it also shows like how attractive this franchise really is, that, like you said, he was in the running for multiple head coach jobs in the league, one of the most respected college football minds in the entire, in all of sports, truly, that he took a school that was a academic school, had never had, in football prowess in my lifetime. And all of a sudden 6 first-rounders come out of Stanford. And I remember watching a lot because grew up, I got to watch Christian McCaffrey play when he was at Valor and loved Christian McCaffrey, liked Andrew Luck and always wanted him to be a Bronco. And the fact that he was able to take those like stringent rules of Stanford and find players that fit that's exactly what his job is now going to be, taking Sean Payton's like vision for this team. And now his job is to go out and evaluate personnel. And, I think he had, I got the Schefter tweet up right here that he had 42 NFL draft picks out of Stanford, which is like probably 15 times what they had in the 20 years leading up to that. And that's just incredible. And the fact that he chose a lesser role to come to the Broncos, it's just, I think our ownership group is just straight up printing money and printing jobs. And this is the 3rd job that they just created out of thin air. And that's how like Fortune 500 companies work, of like an Apple or a Tesla being like, hey, we're about to go this direction. So who's the best person at this? Let's keep adding studs to this, and that's where having the richest owner in sports is great. And I just can't imagine what him and George Payton and that Rager dude who he stole from the Saints, like they're going to find great players from now on. So I'm obviously most hyped about Bo this offseason, but that is a sign that the future is bright in Denver, and all the haters can take that L on the way out, man. Cause yeah, the future is super bright.
Mohamed, your thoughts?
Honestly, like I was kind of surprised. I didn't get the move at first. I knew he coached he was like with Stanford, and I know he got interviewed by the Broncos a few years ago. And then the more I started like reading and researching about it, and I'm like, okay, so he's got an eye for talent. He's really good with personnel, and I'm like, okay, now I get it. He's definitely gonna help George Payton with getting talent and all this stuff, roster evaluation. And he actually worked with Harbaugh, so that will definitely help us with the Chargers as well. So yeah, definitely a good move for the Broncos. What do you think, Eddie?
Well, I actually did some research on him too. So come to find out that I think back in 1997, him and Peyton worked together. On the same. I think it was the Eagles. I believe it was. They worked together, and I was just like, okay, so it's familiarity for Sean Payton. He's bringing in a guy that he's worked with before, and also bringing in a guy that was a college head coach to help with personnel decisions, with finding young guys, rookies, coming out of college. That's perfect. Like I would love that, helping George Payton, find like George Payton in himself. Like that's the one thing I can give him credit for. The guy knows how to find talent out of the draft, and you bring in a guy that was a head coach that can develop guys in college, and you hook him up with George Payton in order to, find talent. Like, dude, like that's amazing. Like you can find guys and kind of be like maybe Kyle Shanahan, like every couple, like not with the quarterback position, but just with every position in general. It gets a couple years down the road, and you got to pay this guy, and he's really good. You can trade him off, get assets, and then you ain't got to worry about the rookies coming in because Sean Payton is going to develop them right, and you can depend on Sean and George Payton to find the right guys. And as Mohamed said, he did work with Jim, or is it John? Jim? I always have a brain fart with that name. They worked together. I think in Stanford in 2007. I think David Shaw was Harbaugh's OC in Stanford, and once Harbaugh went off into the NFL, that's when he took over for Stanford. And I got his record right here. He was the winningest coach in Stanford history at 96-54. Talking about David Shaw. Like, this guy knows talent. He can help the Broncos find it in the draft and, bring them in. And, like, this is just amazing. And, like you said, Mohamed, he can help us with the Chargers. He knows Harbaugh's system, or John Harbaugh's system. He knows the system. He could go over to Sean and VJ and be like, you know what? This is what Harbaugh is going to do on this play. This is what he's going to do in this game. He's going to, run up the middle. He's going to run left. He's going to, this, that, or the other. He could tell Sean and VJ exactly what Harbaugh is going to do, and that could really help us with the chart. Like this year, personally, I think we need help with the Chargers. In years past, with Anthony Lynn and who was their head coach last year, the last couple of years, Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
You can count on getting a win out of the Chargers every year, if not sweeping them, because they were garbage, even with all that talent, because of their head coach. Now with Harbaugh there, it's going to be a little harder. And if we can get insight on Harbaugh and what he's going to run, his offense he's going to run, that's just going to help the Broncos stay ahead of the Chargers, in my opinion. What do you
thought about that angle? Like that's a sweet thought there. Like not only just like what helping develop, find talent out there to stop the Harbaugh system, but then even just from a play calling standpoint, to be able to give the heads up to those dudes, like that's incredible. And hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, man. Like, but that's pretty much all the stuff we had to talk about tonight. But man, I'm excited about the season. I'm excited to see Bo Nix. I'm excited to see all these young guys this year, and I'm excited to see what Sean Payton's going to do with this team, with his quarterback, the guy he handpicked. Any final thoughts, you guys, before we get out of here tonight?
Yeah, future is very bright, and very bright for the long term, but man, we are going to just take the NFL by storm this year. And I think you see that from Cortland Sutton. You see that from Jaleel's most recent interview. And I think we're going to shock some people. And I don't see us winning less games than we won last year. We've improved every single position. And we are going to be pushing for the playoffs this year.
Right
right
before you
now.
leave, Ben, like, what's your prediction, like, as far as the record?
You're about to ask the same question?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the homer in me thinks we win the AFC West. Just the Chargers had such an awful year. The Raiders don't have a quarterback. The Kansas City Chiefs couldn't have had a worse offseason, and they're relying on a 35-year-old tight end who's traveling the world with his, superstar girlfriend. And so the homer in me is like, we're going to win the AFC West. I think the realistic prediction is that we win 11 games.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's more than what I
Definitely.
thought. I'm thinking we're gonna win no less than 8. Like with Russell Wilson and Jarrett Stidham, we won 8 last year. I think with Bo Nix, that's the floor. I think the ceiling for me personally is, well, not the ceiling, but I think we're gonna win 10 games, go 10-7, and maybe sneak into the playoffs. But I say the ceiling for this team would probably be 12 wins. So. But Ben, it was great having you on tonight, man. We really appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
We would love to have you back on anytime you want to come back on. So,
yeah, man, let's make it happen. This was a blast, boys. Let's do a live breakdown after the Denver Broncos beat Russell Wilson week 2.
That's if he starts.
Yeah, that's very
I know
true.
Eddie is waiting for that.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields wins that competition.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be at training camp too, man. So we'll have to do something there.
Yep. Cool. I'll be there with my daughter, but yeah, definitely. I'll let you know what day I head out there. But that's it for us tonight, guys. This has been another fantastic show of Colorado Sports Connection. And Ben, like I said, appreciate you coming on, and we hope to have you again soon.
Sweet.
Later, guys.